All right, welcome, ladies. My name is Samantha Kiego Paulson, and I'm excited to be hosting this masterclass today. And my invitation for you is to book a call with me at the end of this class. There's going to be no slides today, but you're here to listen to me on how to stop half the fighting in your marriage without waiting for him to change. Although I'd love to know how many of you would want to have the ability to make your husband do what you want him to. That's uh that's what it's also about inside of our head, right? That would solve a lot of the problems as the way we see it. So stay tuned. I'm excited to get into this. And the reason why I did this work and this transformation and a pain point for me was also how to not put my kids through this pattern again. So it's without waiting for him or passing the patterns on to your kids. So you're in the right place if you're listening to me and you're wanting to create a better relationship. You're willing to try something new and not being right about your story. Then you're in the right place and spend the next 45 minutes to sit and listen here and see what I have to say. So I'm here to tell you because of all that I've been through, right? So I've been an expert at being managed by my emotions. That's how I discovered these pathways to actually mastering your mind and your emotion, which is all about at the end of the day. So what your goal is to decrease your fighting with about 50%, right? And you can do that. You most definitely can. There is a way to do that. And you don't need to wait for him. He doesn't need to join you in couples counseling. This is not something you're going to be told in therapy or in other places. I'm going to play a testimony from Isabella that will share with you what one conversation did for her life, and why this is not something that's out there in normal therapy, counseling, and coaching. And I'm excited to get into it. So, all right, let's tune in and just see where this takes us. All right. So I want you to think about what's going on in your marriage and the dynamics, and tell me and share with me in the chat or in email if you're watching on replay how it makes you feel and what you wish you could have done better just after the fight has gone on, right? So we kind of had this, we wanted it to go one way and it went the other way, right? So just tone in on that. And then think about this for a second. What if the way to get what you want was always opposite? What if you didn't have to wait for your husband? What if you weren't dependent on him to change or do something? What if you held all the power in the world, but you just had to see things completely different, not completely opposite, not just different? What if it was right in front of your nose this whole time and you just had to AO, always opposite? So, what if there is a gold mine in every trigger? How rich would you be? I know I'm a millionaire today because of what I learned, what my husband, now ex-husband, that's a different story, what he quote unquote put me through, what I learned from him, and learning feels awful sometimes. It made me so rich, right? But we tend to feel stuck and powerless, and we don't see that it's of any value to us to be in this situation at all. And then all of a sudden, you find out if you do this training like I did, that there's so much gold inside of this. That is actually a gift. I call it the gift of learning and everything that pisses you off about your husband. And life hands you a gift that smells like shit, but it has gold inside when you open it. So we're here to open it together. We're here to open that gift together. That's what my aim is for you today, is to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You can unwrap that gift that smells like shit. It really has a lot of love inside of it. And there's a reason that God, creator, whomever put your husband in front of you to trigger the beep out of you. There is a higher meaning behind it that we just don't see it. And it feels like I felt like I was backed in a corner, like I had no choice, like no matter what I did, it just ended up the wrong way all the time. Like I really felt like, what else can I do? I felt like, yeah, like boohoo, right? And then I did this training, and it was a life transformation, really. It was actually a kind of business training and self-development leadership training, but it also your husband and your kids, right? They're the ones that trigger your leadership the most. Some of your kids might be one of your kids. I have one kid that triggers me more than others, that is just brings out all the shit in me, right? And so that's how we train our leadership. So it is about transformation, transforming your leadership of yourself, your reaction to a higher, better version of yourself. And thank God that someone put your husband in front of you to to have that ability to go out and experiment these tools every day and get so rich from practicing. And what it's all about is getting the support and the help to keep stirring for as long as you can at what I call your own ass, right? So we immediately want to look away when we see that, and that's where all the gold is. So if we don't shy away from that, from like for me, I had to figure out, oh my God, that's what I'm like in my marriage. Oh my, that's why I shut him down because of this, right? So the number one question I get asked to help women with is how to not lash out and communicate better with my husband when no how to communicate better with my husband uh when he shuts down or I lash out. I forgot the sentence. It's in my material somewhere, right? So how to not lash out and communicate better with my husband when he shuts down or I get angry with him. That's the sentence. So that's what this is wrapped all around. So your pain points might sound different and be a variation of it, but what we all want end of the day is that peaceful bliss and that love, right? That family time, playing card games, playing board games without fighting, right? It feels like a waste of love and a waste of time. So that's what I'm here to teach you today, or to inspire you to know that it's okay, and inspire you to book a phone call with me, to book a session with me, so I can steer you in the right direction, and and preferably, if you're a match, enroll me into my leadership training. So life before leadership training and life after leadership training. There's a bridge behind me, and I just want to share a quick story with you. So this mission happened when my mom passed away because I learned it from her, right? Switching from extreme love to extreme hate and back again. That's been my nervous system, my dynamics. That's what I grew up in. That's what I created in my own marriage. So I didn't know. I was just happy when I was in peace and bliss, but then it would go back to war, like insane war beyond any measure of like just craziness, like a volcano inside of me of anger and just like that. And it was so unhealthy to go back and forth like that. But I learned that from my sweet mother of above. So when she passed away, something happened in my life that connected me to my creator and to creator and all this stuff inside of me. And I found out that it was my life's mission to help people make love, not war, to turn hate and anger back to where it comes from, love. And today it's called Lead with Love, the 12 steps to lead with love. Forgot to say that. I'm the founder of the 12 steps to lead with love that has helped women all around the world in instances. And I'm not saying you can just do it instantaneously and that you don't need more help, because at the end of the day you do, but instantly create miracles in their relationship, release stuff that, get what they get, that loving husband back in a second, and get everything they wanted that some of my people have waited for over 20 years, and they got their intimacy back by doing the homework that I gave them. So I have great testimonials, and success stories, and it's really miraculous. So God put me in this long life journey of losing my beep, being managed by my emotions, not being able to manage them, and just going from back and forth from extreme hate to extreme love. So I found out that was my life's mission after my mom went away, and I did some training and I really looked into this, and then I started interviewing people all around the world, all these experts like John Gray, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr., Kelly Koshow. She's the CEO of the Debbie Ford Institute, and Debbie Ford was in Oprah. She actually passed away when she was 58, the same age my mother was when she passed away. So I went on this whole journey of interviewing expert at it. Why am I so angry at my husband? Like, and I just wanted to figure it out. And then two things happened. Number one, these experts were amazing and helped me build my platform and really, you know, introduced me to the world and cheered on me. And it was great. And I'm forever grateful for all of them. But I couldn't implement their advice in my own marriage. It just, my husband didn't want to have couples nights, and it made me more sad, really, because I wasn't able to go and do it. And that was one thing. And then the second thing was people started reaching out to me because I was so honest about my beep, right? And they felt that way too. So I would walk around, call myself a recovered angry wife, a recovering angry wife, and my marketing team was like, "Don't say that. Nobody wants to be that." But behind the scenes, people came up to me and said, "Yeah, I'm an angry mom. I'm an angry wife, and I have these anger issues as well." So a lot of couples have all this shit behind the curtains, and That's why they asked me to help them. I'm like, okay, I'm an expert at screaming and yelling. I can do that, but I was actually able to do that, and that's what's so beautiful about this. So I developed my own 12 steps to lead with love that kind of just, played out the master plan from above that I couldn't see when I was in it. So I was able myself also to go from feeling completely stuck and powerless to feeling like I had a choice. That's the journey I want to take you on. Feeling like you don't have a choice, you don't have power, you've tried everything, you're desperate, nothing works, to seeing, oh, I do have choices. I actually can choose differently and I can get a different response from my husband. That's the journey that I want to inspire you to see in front of you. And that's what we're going to do. All right. So here's to you for consuming this. Thank you so much for listening. So if you've if you've watched me and listened to me, you heard about this number one secret to communication with your husband that nobody else talks about. So what's this great revelation and what's this great secret all about? So the secret is da 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 da. It's not what you say to him that matters, it's what you say to yourself. That's like the overall. It's about the conversations we have with ourselves. It's about how you communicate with you, not him. So there are no amount of tactics that's going to help you if you feel the way I did. Like I feel statements, all these nice things, they don't work when you have a volcano of anger inside of you and all this trauma and all this beep coming out of you. That just, it's not going to cut it. And here's the reason why. So the second secret, so to speak, is that it's not what you say that matters, it's how you feel when you say it. Repeat that with me. It's not what you say that matters, it's how you feel when you say it. That's why no amount of tactics or communication is going to work in the long run, because he's going to sense your feelings. Doesn't matter what words you're using, that's what you're communicating. So number one, forget how you communicate with him. Take him off the table and the beer bottles. It was for me. um and look at and recognize your own stories, and we'll get into what those stories are all about, how they're happening, what they really are, because we might not even notice how many stories we have every day, and why they come and what they're all about. So that's the overall secret to communication that you don't hear many other talk about, right? They don't make that connection, that communication. They think that's what you speak out verbally to him, but it is not really. It's what you say to yourself that matters, because he picks up on your emotions. And guess what runs your emotions and what manages your emotions? These stories. Okay, so some of the stories we can see, like when I remove the, like, why the see, just move the beer bottles from the table, that's a story, right? That's a conversation that I'm engaging in, or that's a question I'm asking that's leading me in this direction. So and then there's another story that goes deeper that we might not be aware of. Some trauma happened in our life before we turned, I think it's 12. We made a story up about ourselves or the world around us. And that's that underlying story that we keep finding evidence for. And that's what you rewrite in my training. And you use your husband every day in that training. And you get to rewrite the underlying story that everything that we do subconsciously or self-sabotagingly is to be right about that story. So there are some forces of nature or whatever it is seeks to be right about that story and seeks proof for it, doesn't filter. Like the reality can be going on around us being lovely and beautiful, but we have this filter that we put on in our childhood due to a traumatic event that doesn't have to be a huge traumatic event in the sense that sexual abuse or rape or assault or murder, or doesn't have to be that. It can be any thing, not little, but a thing that really affected you emotionally, and you just made up that conclusion. So if you're a supporter pleaser, like the people that I attract in my life seem to be, my ex-husband was, there was a point in his life and a point in your life that you recognize that, hey, this gives me something. I get some kind of mechanism feel good here, so I'm going to keep doing that. So you build up a defense mechanism around that, and I'm a more of an angry aggressive person, so that's why I tend to go to that, because it gives me some relief, right? It's a relief of an underlying pain, and that's the definition of addiction, is a temporary relief from an underlying pain. And today I'm here to teach you and inspire you and invite you to do training that's going to get you to understand how to get to what I call connection instead of addiction. And connection is this lovely place, and the definition is completely opposite to the definition of addiction. because it's doing something that feels awful in the short run to get to somewhere that feels amazing in the long run. That's what I call connection and love. That's where you are asking questions that actually give you a sense of connection to your husband. So instead of asking, why the beep doesn't he remove the beer bottles from the table or whatever your story is, you could ask, gee, I wonder how he feels. So that's asking a different question. And that brings you to connection. Just that different question brings you to being connected to him or your higher self, your loving powers, your divinity. It brings you to this place that accesses peaceful bliss and harmony. And we have that ability all the time, every day, every minute of every hour of every day. We have access to that. And I would love to share with you how to get there. And today's without PowerPoint and slides. It's just me talking. I'll send you a presentation where you can see the actual steps if you're more like an analyzer. So that's what it's all about. How do we get to that peaceful bliss? How do we get back in those loving arms? You know how it feels. It's just if we don't have any control or way to manage and master our mind and our emotions, we're going to be in that place and I'm going to be out of the place. And we're going to, and that is so exhausting and it's so unhealthy, especially for our children who are watching and copying it. It's not a way to live. Basically, it's traumatic. It's like war zone. At least it was for me and in my family. And even if you the type that doesn't verbally express it or you keep it all in, like more passive, the kids are going to pick up on that anyway. That's just as toxic and just as bad as it is to what I grew up in, right? It's terrible, 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 terrible. And it just sits in our nervous system, but there is a way to override it. And it's AO, 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 ooh, ooh, always opposite and other things. Okay. So, and it literally takes 1 second. So that's addiction and the definition of connection. So if I was to make a recipe of this, of how to cut half your dumb fights in your marriage, there's so much to talk about, but to give you the umbrella, it is that the key is to manage your emotions. But how do we do that when they're like, oh, how do we do that? Okay, you start by managing your mind, one story at a time. When you manage your mind and you start observing the stories that we tell ourselves and also the emotions that they're attached to, like the conclusions we draw upon our emotions. We can have feelings and emotions, we can, different things. And then our brain goes and tells a story. Oh, it's because he didn't pick out the trash. It's because there are beer bottles on the table. And it looks like that. It feels like that. And it's so true in the moment. When we start managing our mind, we can manage our emotions. And the funny thing is that the number one way to manage your mind is to not use it. So that is to go to alpha brainwave state, go swimming in the ocean, go exercise, and go do those stuff. That's what will really help you. And any training will tell you that, right? So that's the place to start, is to not use your mind and meditate, whatever works for you. Give it a rest. Just don't think thoughts, because what we do is we think the same thoughts all over again. Like 99% of our thoughts we thought before. That's why we're creating the same thing. That's number one, to manage your mind. And the number two is the day-to-day stories. You get to look at those and kind of just bust your brain and all the lies, right? So I'll tell you a story about that to illustrate it. I really wanted to stop shouting at my kids. It was my number one goal in life. And it was like number one on my wish list. So what would happen is I would walk around and I would scream, and my brain would go, why did I do that? Like, it's the worst thing, is what I least wanted to do. And because I think out loud, which might be a story, an explanation for bad behavior, to think out loud, and then I just go justify it, because that's another story, another class. But what happened is I'd say, oh, I'm so sorry, mommy's just tired, or mommy's just hungry, or nobody's helping mommy. And, mommy has to tie all this up, mommy has to do all this, all these stories. I can still tend to get them a little bit with my oldest son, that can really put me back years in my leadership training sometimes, which is interesting. And then I would blame them for my bad behavior, because the bad behavior is shouted at them. That doesn't get me what I want, right? So it's bad, not in a judgmental, moral, assessive way. Like, I'm not assessing morally that it's bad. It's just bad practically because it doesn't get me what I want. it doesn't work for my goal, which is to have a peaceful, loving time with my family. So it's bad behavior. But because I regretted it so much, and I was thinking out loud to myself, and they were in the room, I ended up blaming them for my bad behavior, literally, because I'd say or outside circumstances. Either way, it was an excuse and an explanation, and that goes on in different degrees every day of our lives. We have emotions we don't understand, and we try to come up with explanations. We try to point to something practical outside of ourselves to explain what's going on the inside. It doesn't work that way. It's the other way around. You're going to lie to yourself. But we don't notice that. And we can't, it's hard to live life without having any kind of, practical stories or like to do lists or things. But you manage your mind to manage your emotions one story at a time. So I want you to write this down, ladies. You can be right or you can be rich. You can be right or you can be in connection. Thumbs up. I don't know if that's my thumb up coming up. So you can be right about the story, or you can get to love and peace and bliss and connection, but you can't do both. So getting to connection requires you to be willing not to be right about your story. We get some relief from being right, right? So that's why we want to be right about the story, because our analytical mind, or whatever we call it, I call it a psychopathic liar that's been living inside of our head, right? A psychopathic maniac, compulsive liar, and that's your brain, right? The part of your brain that tells you all these bad stories, that is this filter, the story that we made up. And there's a whole world of everything of love and light going on around us. And because we have this filter, we don't see it. And of course, our husband and our kids, the ones closest to us, are going to bring all this up. But it's a great opportunity to learn leadership. So leadership is about leading yourself, not him, not your employees, but leading yourself. And the way to lead yourself is to manage your emotions, because emotions lie, or at least the stories you attach to them. Your brain lies. Your emotions are your emotions, but then your brain comes and lies to you about it. And then, we create this huge pity party, or we get angry, or we justify bad behavior, and we stay stuck being right about, why it's okay for us to do this. We make this so-called unbalanced scorecard, I call it, because you start calculating all the things you did for him, or I would make these hour-long text messages, or like go on forever, defending my own actions and saying his was wrong. Basically, that's all I did when I had the big need to explain myself. I always done something really wrong. So it's not the crime; it is the cover up. And that also goes on inside your own mind. It's not the crime. Bad behavior happens all the time. It's just bad because it doesn't get you to your goal, right? There's bad behavior, there's good behavior. Bad behavior, there's good behavior. No more, no less. You don't need to analyze it, feel bad about it, or you just acknowledge it's bad behavior and then you move on. So that's step number 1 in my 12 steps to lead with love. And it's also step number 1 in my 3 quick ones. Now, honesty, responsibility, and choice. Honesty, responsibility, and you choose, you choose, you train this like a muscle inside your brain, and you go, okay, honesty. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have texted while I was biking. One time, this woman got really mad at me, and I was like, huh? I was just going a story about what she, okay, maybe I shouldn't. So, like, honesty is about being honest about you, what you can do better, and being vulnerable and looking at you. That's honesty. And when you don't practice that and practice, busting your stories, seeing your stories, you don't get to step number 2 in the 3 quick ones, which is responsibility, right? Taking responsibility, making it all something that you created and something that you send out, that you can also get a different response and send something different out. So responsibility is the game, that everything we receive is a direct consequence of what we send out energetically, emotionally, and we just create everything when we play the game of responsibility. And then step number 3, once we've taken responsibility, is choice. Then you feel like you have a choice. You might not be able to do it, but you realize, okay, I have 3 options. I used to cry washing the dishes. And then I started laughing one time because I heard a woman on YouTube say, stop hosting your own pity party, which is step number 9 in my 12 steps that we train when women train with me. And and I was standing there doing the dishes, And I was starting to wire up that same story that would get me crying and feeling sorry for myself. You know, that story that just, I was starting to spit it up while I was doing the dishes. And then I thought about her and I just started laughing because I love that expression. Because you're hosting, you're the host, you're inviting all these guests, these really bad guests, Le Miserable, blame, you know, bitterness, all these guests you invite inside your heart and your head, right? And you host the party gets louder and louder, but you're hosting it. You just throw all these guests out. So from that day on, I realized, okay, I have three choices that do not involve blaming, complaining, or hosting a pity party. I can A, leave it be, the mess, the whatever it is, the dishes, whatever it is, the beer bottles. I can leave it be. I can hire someone to remove it for me. I can, pay the kids, pay an au pair, whatever. Or I can move it myself. I have options. I don't have to have a pity party. I don't have to condone, or I don't have to indulge in this quote unquote bad behavior. I do have choices, but it requires, like a shock in the brain. Requires it requires some new neural pathways and mirror pathways in our brain, and different questions, and an inspiration to think differently and laugh a little or do something like shake it off somehow without ignoring it. So yeah, we do have choices, but we get to practice honesty, responsibility in order to feel like we have a choice. And then step number 12 in my 12 steps to leave with love is called fail and recommit. Fail and recommit. That's also a choice. So you fail is not a bad thing if you then choose to recommit. So Gay Hendricks told me, he's one of the amazing people I've had the honor of working with and interviewing, and his wife, Kathy Hendricks. I just love their book. He's told me that commitment should really be called recommitment. And that's so true. And Gabby Bernstein calls it choose again. So here it is, the choice. So you fail, but what you do and what you choose to do after failure or in the middle of failure determines the direction, right? So you fail, it's fine. Just recommit to whatever you're practicing. So in my 12 steps, you can be practicing no blaming. And you say, I had two people were training with me. I have the wonderful story. You can see my master class. I go through all these testimonials of Sophie. Wonderful story of what she got out of not blaming. Amazing, amazing date night. And he said he loved her. You got to check that out. It's a long master class, but I'll send it to you if you want, or I can speed it up and have a master class in here with it. It's just amazing. But I remember coaching her, and at the same time, I was coaching somebody else. And within a very short period of time, and I think we were only practicing 24 hours at a time, she told her husband, I hate you, it's all your fault, right? And then she got to 12, the step number 12, really fast, failed to recommit. And it doesn't matter. There's a victory bell, and then you go down on a step, you practice it again. And all of a sudden you're running up the 12 steps really fast. So you get to fail and commit really fast, like a mouse that's just running up. And that's what it's about. So ta-da-da, the secret that nobody else talks about is communicating with yourself. It's not what you say that matters, it's how you feel when you say it. And let's see if I can think about number 3 that I wanted to share. I want to share with you, it's about self-managing and course corrections. You're going on a course, you're going down a pathway. It's either the love way or the war way, right? The war path or the love path. And when you can course correct yourself, when you can stop midway and you can ask yourself a question, you don't have to be able to change. But if you ask yourself, hey, wait a minute, ayo, ayo, what can I do right now without blaming, complaining, or hosting a huge pity party? And then you say, fuck you, I hate you, it's all your fault. That's fine. But if you ask the question, if you're able to ask the question, you can manage yourself in the situation just by asking the question and being curious, having an open mind. An open mind is key to this. Open mindedness, asking yourself, you manage your thoughts by the questions that you ask, by the focus that you have. What do you look at? What you look at grows. If you're looking at the mess, or you're looking at the beer bottles, you're looking at your own hurt, you're looking at the fact that he doesn't love you the way he used to, or you're looking at some truth, some evidence of that story that you're stuck in. and you're staring at it, you're cultivating it. I was cultivating my own depression for years, and here's how I did it. And I want to use this example to illustrate how what you focus on, you nurture and you grow. So it's standing in the front of your view and you can't get to connection because you're all about that stuff that you grew, right? So I write these love poems about my brokenheartedness, and it would just grow and grow and grow until one day I found out what I was doing. I was cultivating my own depression. Isn't that crazy? It gave me some temporary relief. So remember this if you want to really trick your brain to remembering something. So peeing in our pants, that's what temporary relief is about. And it can be writing love poems, it can be blaming, it can be supporting, being in your supporter role, it can be in your asshole role. Because get it out, or over texting. I've had that just relief by over texting and dumping all my emotions out. It's actually what got me to write a good book. But I remember my book coach said, it's like you're vomiting over me. Poor Matt, it was called. But it ended up being a really great book. And I'd love to share that with you too. It's not published yet, but you can get to read it and write a review. Um, so we are the way we are. And it's a mixture of self-acceptance and being okay with where you're at in order to get to transform and shift. So if you're focused on getting away from something or towards something, you're not in the present moment and you're going to struggle. It's not going to be, it's not going to beam you there. It's going to be a hard, long road. But if you can accept where you're at, and from that place, start asking yourself different questions, grounding first, because then you can course correct yourself. And then you'll feel empowered, like you have choices. And then it's about practicing one new habit at a time. So I've told you, I promised that you can cut half the fights with your husband without waiting for him to change. So I want to briefly talk about the cheat sheet to getting your husband to do what you want, which is one of the exercises, just so that I deliver on my promise, right? And then we go into the more philosophical parts about accepting where you're at. But you're like, I can't do that. I need some advice right now, right? So here you go. Remove verbal garbage from your mind and from your vocabulary and flip words around. When you do, I wrote a really short book about this as well, words to use in order to choose love. So I would think and say that my husband was lazy, uh, incapable of taking action, slow, and some variations of those words. And then one day I removed them from my vocabulary and I flipped them around. When I flipped them around, the positive to the negative was he's patient, he's grounded, and he's thorough, and kind. So when I looked at that, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly the traits, the personality traits that I need, that I lack. And if I become more patient, more grounded, as it was always my feedback that I lacked that. Always had nothing to do with my husband. My feedback was that I lacked patience and being grounded. And when I implemented that, and or when I do, still on the journey, I become the leader that can help more people. But if I don't implement that and become more like my husband, I won't touch as many people's lives. I won't transform and I won't live out my potential in life. So even to be a better leader, I needed to learn these things. And I'm like, wow, that's why God put him in front of me to learn me that. So once you see that, you start experiencing the gift of learning and everything that pisses you off about your husband, because there is a reason for it. And other people talk about it in terms of you can only see things inside of yourself, but I just call it remove verbal garbage and then the word flipping exercise where you flip the word around. So I would, and this is kind of a hack to bypass and cheat your brain a little bit. So I would verbally say, I don't know what I was thinking at the time, but I would say, oh, honey, you're so efficient instead of saying you're slow. But it took myself and him to a higher level because I wouldn't be talking down to him. So before I did this training, I would do the relief thing with friends and my mom. I would call her up, or I would talk to my friends about how frustrated I was in marriage with this miss and the yada, yada, yada. And that just doesn't work. It doesn't serve you. So that's like a big cross. We see my master class, there's like a big cross. Do not share your this stuff with your mom and your friends and talk. Do not say or think a negative word about your husband to anyone, most of all yourself, but of course never outside your mouth. You just take that habit away. And then there was a do not share your emotions with your husband, but you can do it at some point, but it's better to do this training and share your emotions with me or somebody else, because here's another big secret that I think I'd call number 3 that's really important. So your husband has been told his entire life that he's doing something wrong by women, right? First it was his mom, then his teachers, because they're built different than the school system, so they don't sit still. So because he's been told his entire life by women that he's doing something wrong, because they have something called aggression nurture and stuff like that. We're different, but there are more female, teachers and moms. We're more with the kids, so, and other girlfriends. He's just always expecting to be a failure when it comes to women, in sense of not knowing what to do, and we're not understanding our emotions, and being one big question mark and being told off. And maybe when he shared emotions, he was told off that he was wrong. So if he spoke his mind and said that you're really, really bitchy and annoying or whatever it is, then he'd definitely be in trouble. So he's learned to shut down, right? That's just in him. And he's also learned that you're blaming him, and we are blaming them most of the time, right? So indirectly or directly. So when you think about that fact, you should be able to ask yourself better questions, and then you will stop half of all your fighting if you ask better questions. Ask, gee, I wonder how he feels. I know it doesn't give you the temporary relief of looking at everything that you're doing right and everything that he's doing wrong. But when you ask that question, you ask some new and better questions, you will manage your mind to a new and better place. And the way to manage your emotions is to manage your mind. And what is it? Answer me in the chat if you remember how to manage your mind. Yes. I get sad and I cry and blame him for what I'm feeling. It's a cycle I've played out many times with other men. Yeah. So number one takeaway, your brain is a compulsive liar that makes up stories that are not true. And those stories get us in trouble. So stop listening to your brain and just acknowledge and accept the fact we don't understand our emotions. We literally don't. And we shouldn't try to either. It's going to get us in trouble. Emotions come and go, right? They're just there for some reason or the other. And all my life, I explained my emotions to my husband, or wanted to, or wished to, or thought that was the solution. But guess what? Just acknowledge the fact that you don't understand them. The only reason we're explaining our emotions to our husband, if you're like me, you might not be. You might be like my husband, and then you're at the other end of it, right? And know that I still call him my husband, although we did end up getting divorced, but we still live close by each other and have kids together. So we never get really divorced. But that was after leading myself with love. That became the step in order to lead myself with love. And I never ever thought that in my entire life. But anyways, I tell myself that he's wrong and he's hurting me, and why he's doing this exactly. That he's not loving me. That's a story we're telling ourselves. All right. So where was I going before? Asking better questions. Gee, I wonder how he feels. Your husband has been told that he's doing something wrong, and we are blaming him directly or indirectly. If you look at that and start acknowledging that, you can have honest and vulnerable conversation with your husband at any time. If your husband is anything like me, you can always go over and kiss him, right? So there are these shortcuts to get different results that gives us some more faith. If you're really, really stuck, it's great to go over and just kiss him, for example, because then you're not talking. So I would be talking way too much, saying things that would hurt him, uh, and just showing up like in ways that got me the exact opposite of what I wanted. And I remember just wishing I could cut out my tongue. So that's the way to reduce 50% of all your fighting. Cut out your tongue. Manage your mouth. Manage your mouth by managing your emotions, and you manage your emotions by managing your mind. Asking better questions, new questions, course correcting because you're practicing some kind of self love outside of the marriage. and you find that number one thing that gets your brainwaves into alpha brainwave state. For me, it was swimming in the ocean. Call it my angry wife shock therapy. So that's one way. And that's taking responsibilities, doing these things. So when you're in your story, shift it, shift it, shift it. Don't keep, you keep repeating the same thing over and over again. It's just stories, and it happens to all of us. So do whatever you can, jump into freezing cold ocean, implement new habits, shockwave your brain. All right, now I've been talking for almost 45 minutes. So I'm going to share my calendar link in the email that goes out. I'm going to send a replay of this. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to be hosting these live webinars, and I'm going to do it with slideshows and tutorials, I'm going to say, and testimonials. So you can see all the success stories of the ladies around the world who have had amazing breakthroughs. And I promised you I was going to play Isabella's testimonial. So I am going to do that. Hold on one second. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen.
Hey guys, my name is Isabella. I'm here today to just talk a little bit about my experience and a little bit about my past. And basically, I started reading this help a few years ago, I think, because I realized that I felt a lot of anger in me, and I was very angry about everything. And I thought, oh, where's this coming from? And everything was being affected, my relationships, even my friendships, and at home, and my family, with my own family. So I thought, this has to be, I need to deal with this. But I just carried on with my life, and I thought, I'll just try and control my emotions. I didn't think it was going to rule over me so much, and just, get out of control like it has. So I thought, I'm going to try going to a counselor and go to a psychologist, or go and see if they can help me. I started my relationship, and I had my twins, my boy twins, and my relationship with Matty was not going well at all from the very beginning. We didn't know each other very well, and we had the boys. It was very stressful. I don't know if any of you women have twins, but it was really, really hard, and things weren't going well at all. And I thought, I need to sort this out. So I went to see a psychologist, and in the end, I thought, I don't think it's going to help, but I'll just go and see. So I did go, and I was right. At the end, I spoke about everything that was happening, and they kind of told me that, this psychologist said that it was basically all his fault, all my partner's fault, that I wasn't in the wrong, and I thought that this can't be like this, and there's something wrong. So it didn't really help me, and so I carried on, and I thought, I carried on having fights, arguments, and I couldn't control these emotions with my partner, and I felt, I need help. So having spoken to Samantha, I had a conversation with her. I saw Lead with Love on Facebook, and I thought, what is this? And I'll have a look at it. And having that one conversation has just changed the way I think immensely. It's kind of made me think of things differently, how instead of before me kind of wanting him to change, and him thinking, but he's not perfect, he's also got to get sort himself out. I kind of, this has made me change my attitude and change my ways of thinking by kind of, thinking, well, what can I change, and what can I do to make things different? So maybe if I change, then the other person can change as well. Like, I'm not going to be able to control the other person, but I can control what I do and what I say and my actions. So this has definitely brought that to light. How can I control those emotions, because I know that I'm an angry person, and I know I can't control these emotions. So how can I change this? And this is what I would like to do. This is what I would like to, and I've just started with Samantha, and obviously and hopefully would like to continue with her, because the one conversation I did have has made me think about the whole thing differently. Have a solution, actually. Think, how can I change? How can I control my emotions? How can I see things differently? So that slowly he can hopefully see that and things can change for both of us. So I truly and really recommend Lead with Love. It's been an eye opener for me, and I hope it is for all you women out there. And I just want to say thank you very much, because after so long, I think I found something that's really going to help me. So thank you, Rose. Have a lovely day. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for watching. Mwah. See you next Tuesday. Tune in, reach out and touch me, touch yourself. No, that sounds wrong. It is a very, very moving to do this work. Reach out and ask for help, because it just creates
Very first word.